All right, I'm gonna let the video upload right quick. All right, the shock exchange, of course. I'm here with Mr. Mitchell. This is Trump and the GE baptizes DL Hughley. DL is asking for it, so we gotta give it to him. But the election is right around the corner. I mean, it's only 2 months away, and all the rigmarole is gonna come to an end. We're gonna finally have a president. As far as the economy, I don't really have much to say other than only thing I've noticed that I think Dollar General had poor earnings, and they're saying that their consumer, their core consumer, low income people who shop there are struggling to continue to spend while they're while they have to pay rent, buy food, groceries, and other stuff. So the consumer is struggling, at least at the low income level, which we've been predicting all along. So that's the only thing of note. But as far as the presidential election, both parties have had their conventions. The Democratic National Convention was pretty much a pep rally. I didn't really watch it. The only episode I really liked was D.L. Hughley. I really enjoyed that. So we'll get into that shortly. Let Mr. Mitchell weigh in. You have anything on the economy quickly?
No, I'll just quickly piggyback on the Dollar General because it's often watched so closely. It becomes kind of a barometer of what's happening. I think within the real economy, the thing that stood out me the most was the fact um, that they cut their guidance, that they lowered their guidance below consensus. So it definitely speaks to the potential near-term future, um, 2025, and even with this supposed soft landing. We have our first rate cuts coming next month by the Fed. PCE data was kind of largely in line with expectations to support at least a 25 bip. I think there was some small expectation that maybe there would be a 50 bip, but I think that's pretty unrealistic given this kind of Powell's leadership. We haven't seen these kind of giant cuts, so I think that was a little bit of a hope and a prayer on the 50 bips, but 25 is certainly come to be standard under Powell's administration. So we got that confirmation, and we should see first rate cuts come September, but there's still the expectation of a soft landing. But I think Dollar General, even some of the beauty brands, such as like Ulta, reported as well. And for those that know, beauty tends to be a kind of recession-proof business, but the fact that even beauty is cutting, kind of lowering some of the guidance and the expected revenue in the near term future for the next quarter just kind of backs up again what's happening throughout the real economy, which we kind of speak to over and over again, that this is not going to be a soft landing for the have-nots, nowhere close to it. So and then I'll take a quick second and give a shout out, rest in peace to Fat Man Scoop's family uh, as well. Just came across the news that brother passed away. Had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time with him some years ago, about maybe already, yeah, it was like mid 2000s. Um, and he was a real good brother, and one of the first families that did the um, kind of family-based reality TV but did it like via YouTube. Um, they really kind of set that model, and I don't think they really got the credit for that. Him and his wife, and really showcasing their life, and he was just a really good brother, really down to earth. So yeah, just send out prayers to Fat Man Scoop's family because I'm sure they're really going through it because they're pretty close knit.
Okay, so yeah, shout out to Fat Man Scoop and his family. I just heard that today, the news today. But okay, so the Democratic National Convention included D.L. Hughley. I didn't know he was going to perform. I was sort of wondering what he would do because over the years he has been kind of dogmatic. I mean, he's been going in on the Republican Party and Trump in particular. Trump is a racist and Trump this and Trump that, really preaching to people. Relentless. Like, DL, we get it. You don't like Donald Trump. We got it. Trump is a racist. And just repeating random talking points. I always thought he was trying, as guys get older, particularly comedians, they tend to become more like George Carlin, become more like essayists, and become more like elder statesmen, like George Carlin. And I always thought that was the avenue he was going to take. I know he's had a couple shows on TV that didn't do too well. I know he's been a guest commentator on Comedy Central. I know he has some online shows. I think it's hard to just do a weekly show, have content for 5 days a week or 4 days a week. I think that's particularly hard. Yeah. But he's a great comedian. I've watched his career when he was coming up through BET's Comic View. I always liked him. I've been to a few of his shows. He does not miss. I mean, he's a constant professional. He does not miss. The last show I went to, I told this person I was going with, make sure we get there early, because I'm not sitting in the front row under no circumstances. Under no circumstances that we sit in the front row. That was a good decision, because the people in the front row, they got it. I was sitting in the back. I was sitting like in the back, you would not see me. I was ducking down. He would not see me. I'm not making eye contact. This guy, nothing. But he was funny, and I was pleasantly surprised by his 4 or 5 minute bit at the DNC at the convention. I mean, I thought he was phenomenal. I thought he was spot on. That's the D.L. Hughley I remember, who just tells his jokes with no vitriol, not overselling the jokes, just gives you the heat. That's it, and gets off stage. So I'm gonna play a few minutes of his bit. I don't want to. This is fair use. This critique and commentary only, so we don't get have it taken down. So here's I'm gonna try to share my screen. Show his few minutes of going in on Trump, which I thought was hilarious.
Hey now, hey Chicago, how y'all doing? What's happening in California? Now, wait, where those AKAs at? Where they at? You know what? In 3 months, ain't gonna be no living with y'all. I can tell you this. I don't blame Donald Trump for not wanting to debate Kamala. I've been married to a black woman for 40 years and I ain't won one debate. I'm owing 93,000. Now, of course, Trump is saying that Kamala isn't black. I guarantee you this, Kamala's been black a lot longer than Trump's been a Republican. And if he keeps sliding in the polls the way he is, the only way he can keep Kamala out of the White House is if he buys it and refuses to rent it to her. Of course, Kamala's getting broad support. They got black men for Kamala, white men for Kamala, Latinos and Asians for Kamala. They even have Republicans for Kamala. Republicans for Kamala. I guess Donald Trump will finally know what it's like when you get left for a younger woman. But seriously, Kamala knows the truth about the American dream, that hard work is not enough. Hard work alone is not enough to succeed, that you need access and information and opportunity. And she knows that some folks are often denied those very things. As president, she will give each and every one of us a fair shot in life. But I have to admit I didn't always believe that. I mean, if you told me the 15-year-old me would be on stage supporting a prosecutor and a teacher, there is no way that I would have believed you. But because of that, I made assumptions about Kamala's record. And I often repeated them to a lot of people. Then one day, Kamala invited me to her house. She put her hand on my shoulder and she asked me to do some research, something I had never done, something a lot of people I know had never done before. Imagine attacking someone's character without a single Google search. So I did what I should have done in the first place. I learned that she had done for us exactly what she promised to. I believe that your apology should be as loud as your accusation, and I'm here apologizing in front of the whole damn world.
Okay, so I don't want to show the whole thing, but I thought to me this was the highlight of the convention from what I saw. I really enjoyed it. I thought he was phenomenal. I'm happy for DL. I hope he can use this. I'm sure it would be a layup for him to use this this national platform to go out even make more money, to go do a bigger show, maybe do a Netflix special, or when he goes on the road, do his next comedy special. I'm sure it's going to be sold out, which is the point of all this. To promote Kamala and then end up having in the Democratic Party, end up having them promote him. So I'm sure he's going to leverage this to make even more money, and he's probably right now one of the, along with Cat Williams and Dave Chappelle, one of the top, one of the best known comedians in the country, one of the hottest comedians right now. I think he can leverage that, in my opinion. So a couple things at high level. Again, being a hater that I am, I've got to find something wrong, right? Anyway, but one thing I didn't like when you opened up, you started talking about the AKAs. I was like, come on, like he's pandering to black women, and that's not the DL I remember from years ago. DL knew he had that heat. Maybe he's not as, maybe he doesn't think he's as funny as he used to be, so he had to simp for certain fraternities or sororities. I think he's trying to get his racial bona fides by talking about the AKAs and the Omegas. That's the way it seemed. That was my impression when I first saw it. Like, come on, DL. Like, why did you bring fried chicken out on the stage and start eating in front of people, or take out a table and a card table and start playing bid whist or something? You know what I mean? So that was the first thing I thought. The other thing was at the end he gave a shout out to the Omega Psi Phi. Again, I thought it was a chance for him I thought he was trying to get his racial bona fides by doing that, and I don't think you need to do that. I didn't think he needed to do that. I thought my impression of the Democrats and the Harris campaign in general is there's been a lot of performative behavior, and that to me was a performance in front of white folks, and I thought it took away from his monologue at a high level. That was I want you sort of let you weigh in on it, but I think he was trying to get his racial bona fides and put on performance, which is what I think the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris should be trying to get away from.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about it all the time. You know, it is I think it is a pandering. The part, I didn't feel that strongly about the AKA piece. I think I have similar sentiments regarding the apology itself. I think one, kudos to, like, if that is true and is sincere, then kudos um to DL for that level of humility. Because I I share in the sentiment that if you are publicly wrong, then, and especially in like tearing somebody else down, or um, then you should be equally as publicly apologetic. Um, and just eating that humble pie. Um, so if that is sincere, that he just kind of jumped out there, because it did, uh, thinking back, like you stated, and I think it's been maybe 5 or 6 years, maybe a little bit farther, at least when I started noticing that turning of the page that you talked about earlier. where he's more focused on politics, where he began speaking to more issues within the community, not just from a comedic standpoint, right? Like he's coming from a place of injecting some comedy, but the focus had became more informational, and maybe turning, you know, political kind of comedian turned political pundit, right? I feel like even George Carlin was always that, right? Like I think that's what gave him his uniqueness, because Carlin was always injected the political discourse within his social commentary. But yeah, so if that is sincere, because the things that I do recall from DL, it just seemed like he was pulling these random talking points. The times that I would hear him throughout his show, I didn't listen to his show with any degree of consistency. But when I would hear him, it always seemed like he read something, like just read the headline, and then just
Yeah.
decided to run on that opinion.
Yeah,
So
probably
like,
probably Trump and the GE, right?
so I did feel like when he gave the apology, that's where I feel like maybe there's some authenticity there because maybe he really didn't research. But then I think about I don't know. I guess I would like to believe that if you're putting together, and I believe his show is nationally syndicated. Maybe I'm wrong there, but if you're putting together a nationally syndicated radio show, that some research would go into it. I mean, that's why you have, you know, production assistants, research assistants, folks that actually do the work behind the scenes, even if to put together, a summarized bullet point for you. So you aren't just going out on air willy nilly. Maybe he didn't have any of those things. I don't know what the budget was like with the show, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I definitely got the sense that he just pulled from a headline and dove in and without any real substance to his talking points. And like you said, he was just kind of jumping on this hate Trump bandwagon without really being able to articulate beyond the superficial, like, oh, Trump's a racist, etc. It's like, well, which president hasn't been? You know what I mean? Like, which president has not been racist? Frankly, you know, even Obama being the first black president in 2008. It's like this country had been picking presidents for over 200 years by that point. So you know, essentially picking a racist, that's, that that doesn't break black people. That doesn't kill us. We've had to choose between the lesser of two evils since the right to vote. So that's not a nuanced, point that should, I think, be kind of a scare tactic. It's it's kind of baseline for black
Right.
voting.
Yeah. Yes.
So
It's a
yeah,
talking point. It's a
yeah.
talking point. And
So yeah, he just but
right.
I did enjoy the if it's but to land his plane, if it's not sincere though, like because he did like he would go hard. DL definitely would go hard on his points,
Mhm.
tripling down, quadrupling down, and if it's not authentic, then it becomes just a shill, right? Like
Right. Right.
and that's the part that I'm hoping is not the case. But like you already pointed out, right? The exposure is going to lead to some deals, possibly a Netflix special, but maybe even some production deals, some creative deals, etc. But in other words, stacking more money.
Right.
On
If
the
yeah,
opportunities.
he's
Yeah,
definitely got talent. He's definitely got talent.
yeah.
He can keep along this path as long as he has the right research behind him with giving the right information. The other thing on that, just on this opening or just overall monologue was that I also like the way he said that who would have thought that I would support a prosecutor than a teacher.
Right,
I thought
right,
that was hilarious. So it's like he's self-deprecating and everybody
right,
can
right.
relate to that. Another thing as far as Trump being a racist, I don't know how old D.L. Hughley is, but I remember in the 80s and 90s, Trump was the guy everybody wanted to hang out with. Oprah,
Yeah, yeah,
Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, the Johnson guy who owned Ebony Magazine,
yeah.
Don King, all the athletes, all the rappers wanted to hang out with Trump. He didn't become a racist until he became a legitimate political candidate
Right.
for president. When he
Absolutely.
started making waves in the Republican Party, now he's a racist.
And
Something
mind
to
you, that's after. Not to cut you, but that's after the Central Park Five ad was
right,
put out. Like
right,
his popularity did not decline after the Central Park Five. You know what I mean? Because I feel like sometimes we treat this or the way that it's being pushed as if it was this discovery. Like, oh wait, we didn't know he supported
right,
and advocating for the execution of the Central Park Five. Da, 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 like nah, all of the Wu Tang photos was post Central Park Five. All of the like the
right,
popularity within the black community increased after the
right,
Central Park Five.
and that's
Like
another
that was
story into itself. That's
yeah,
another story into itself because the Central Park Five, it was first of all it was a heinous crime somebody
right,
committed,
right,
and the Central Park Five confessed to it.
yeah,
All Trump had was a confession.
right,
He didn't know they had been confessed under arrest by
right, right,
Democratic prosecutors. So all he had was a confession. So anyway,
yeah,
again, he didn't become a racist until he became a legitimate a candidate for president. And so it seemed like again, it's sort of pandering to the media
right,
on DL's side. Okay, so I just want to go through point by point quickly. The first thing he said was, um, he doesn't want to. He sees why Trump doesn't want to debate Kamala. He doesn't want to debate with a black woman, and he's over 93,000, which I thought was funny.
yeah,
It's not factual though. Not factual because
right,
Trump was on. Trump was on. He spoke. He interviewed with the National Association of Black Journalists a couple weeks ago, and he thought Kamala was going to be on Zoom, but she didn't show up.
right,
So he didn't skirt any debate. First of all, secondly, what debate has Kamala won? Kamala ran for president in 2020. Not that she wasn't a good debater, it's just the people, the country didn't resonate with her. They didn't want her as president. She didn't do well in the polls in the first debates, so she dropped out. And then then Biden made her vice presidential candidate because he was looking for a woman of color.
hmm
But she didn't win any debates 3.5 years ago with anybody. Buttigieg, Biden,
Booker,
Klobuchar. She didn't win a debate with anybody.
Gab,
Secondly,
what's her name? Tulsi, uh,
Gabbard,
Gabby,
right.
Tulsi, yeah,
Tulsi Gabbard, yeah.
thank
She didn't win a debate with anybody, let alone Trump. Then she had an interview a couple of days ago with her and her vice presidential candidate on CNN. She can't win a debate when there's nobody to debate with.
you. Right,
She can't win a debate with herself. She can't. The current Kamala can't win a debate with the former Kamala because the current Kamala can't remember what the previous Kamala said 3 or 4 years ago on issues, fracking, gun control, the border. So she can't win a debate with herself. So why would Trump be afraid to debate her? That's not true. Sounds good though. So that you weigh on that.
no, I absolutely agree. I think as you said in the beginning, I think the breath of fresh air for DL is for me going back as a point of reference. Kings of Comedy I think his last big comedy special. Um, that is they crossed even into Gen Z's um focus because it's constantly being referenced. Um, for me, DL is always at his peak when he's just roasting folks, right? Like I could even go like I could even pass on everything else from DL. When he's roasting folk, like that's peak DL for me. So it was a breath of fresh air to see him kind of getting back to the roots of what I always felt like made him his funniest. Um, yeah, like you said, like you ain't want to be in that front row because you about to get that business, like you about to get that work. So I felt like he did get back to that, and that's what I enjoyed about it as well. I felt like he was just refocus, as they say, in his bag. Um, but yeah, like getting back to some of the factual, eh, and when you're looking at a comedian, you're not you're not listening to a comedian for the facts, right? You're listening to the comedian for an interpretation of the facts, right? Like, and I think that's what we got. We got an interpretation that hit, right? He knew his audience. He called them out directly, AKAs, black women. He knows who's the primary target of Kamala's messaging of the DNC. Even and to that point, that's what I wanted to say too with the apology. The apology was the chair. Like the apology told you that you are talking to a veteran, right? And because like he could have worded that apology a thousand different ways, right? He's a wordsmith. And he chose to ensure that the reason he got the things wrong, he could have just said, I was wrong, right? I got new information. I stood on X when I got the new information. I changed my position to Y. Boom. And for that, I apologize. I went hard on you, dot, 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 right? Man's made sure that he focused and said, I didn't do my research. And what's the very messaging that the DNC has been pushing and specifically for black men? That black men are criticizing Kamala's record, criticizing Kamala, period, because of their lack of research. And it took Kamala putting her hand on his shoulder for him to use the most popular search engine in the country, Google. Okay, okay, brother.
Uh,
You almost
not
have
the
to
not the library, not the library,
like,
not Trump and the GE, but Google. Okay,
like,
guys.
he had it. I said, boy, that's when you know you're dealing with a veteran because
But I got you. I got you.
you talking about some top tier shucking, like almost impressively. You know what I mean? Like you had to just
Right,
stand
right.
back,
It
like,
also
you know
implies.
what?
It also.
I
It,
can't even hate
it
on
also
this guy.
implies. It also implies that everything he said about Trump was well researched, and de facto. But we
Exactly.
know it wasn't.
Right.
But we know it
Right.
wasn't. You
Right.
can't get anything past. You
So
can't get anything past Debbie Downer over here.
right. But it's a
Tori
new
ain't gonna find something.
masterclass.
Tori gonna find something wrong. I know, right?
But no, it is an absolute masterclass in knowing your audience, and aligning the jokes with the audience, and like you said, ensuring a future with that audience, right? Because you know, I mean, Jeff Foxworthy, is it Foxworthy or Foxworth, the comedian, and the whole redneck cruise. I know they had a little comedy uh troupe or ensemble themselves. Um, they're the kind of de facto Republican um comedians, if you want to call it that, at least cater to the what is often pushed as the Republican voter, kind of that redneck, low information uh, voter base. And, he certainly has some degree of success. But my point in bringing him up is that um, DL understands that the folks that buy and support his comedy, buy his tickets, support his show, support, his attempts at getting in front of an audience are largely the same people that vote Democrat, in other words. All right.
Okay. Okay.
So this is, again, it's a master class. If this is truly, um, like I said, I hope that actually happened. I hope this is not a Kamala I cook greens in bathtubs story, right? Like that he gave, and that there's some authenticity in it. Because if it's not, then it's a true master class in shucking and jiving, brother.
Okay. So he says Kamala has been black longer than Trump has been a Republican. Okay, so
That was
on
funny.
that point, yeah, it was funny.
Yeah.
Um, on that point, it's again, he's kind of piggybacking off some of the fake news who's come out and said Trump was attacking Kamala's race, which is not true. So again, at the National Association of Black Journalists, the first question Rachel Scott asked Trump was, "Do you think Kamala was named the vice president because she was black,
Right.
or you think she's a presidential candidate because she's black?" Why wouldn't Rachel Scott know that she's black? Why wouldn't the National Association of Black Journalists need Trump, a white man, to weigh in on that? Why would she ask that question?
Right.
It's unserious.
Right.
Why would you even bring race into it? It's unserious. Trump said, I thought she was Indian. Then one day she woke up and she was black.
Right.
And when the mood suited her. Trump knew Kamala Harris. I'm not saying they're friends, but he was courting with Kamala Harris before any of us were.
Yeah.
She probably maybe tried to reach out to him to raise money for one of her campaigns. Who knows? If he's a large donor, he would know who these politicians were when they were coming up to the ranks. And when she won for Senate in California, the press release was that, or the news stories were saying that she was the first Indian American senator in California.
Right.
Didn't mention anything about black. Then it says she was the first African American president. So you can go from Indian American to African American. How?
Right.
And so the article about her being the first Indian American senator, I think it was the Associated Press.
Yeah.
Came from the Associated Press. Trump never said anything about her race. He was asked directly by Rachel Scott. He said he thought she was Indian. She told him people she was Indian. Now she's black, which is factual. Secondly, when she interviewed with CNN a couple of days ago, she was asked directly about her race. She didn't answer the question. She said, "Move on." Let's move on. She refused to answer the question about whether she was black or Indian or whatever. So apparently, it's not true that Kamala's been black more than Trump has been a Republican, because Kamala's never admitted that she's black. She had a chance to admit it a couple of days ago, and she whiffed. So that's my take on that.
That's that whole interview um, with Trump, which and I think it took the National Association of Black Journalists by surprise that he agreed to come on. I think that they were hoping that this was going to be a lob. That it's like, okay, let's throw a hand grenade, see what kind of damage it does. And best case scenario is that we're able to use the damage from the hand grenade that we've thrown to you know set up the next attack, right? Um, Worst case scenario is that we're actually going to have to send some boots on the ground after the hand grenade because it didn't do as much damage as we had hoped. And by Trump agreeing and showing up, I think that that's exactly what happened. Is that it didn't. The hand grenade was not allowed to do as much damage as they had hoped. I think what they were hoping was that they would be able to use uh, the his declining the invitation uh, to point out and use that as an attack um, to showcase that he's rejecting black people, he's rejecting black voters. He's just as racist as we have been saying, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah,
So him showing up to it, I think, already put them on a back foot that they were actually unprepared. So
but
now
but
you
but
just
has
have this emotional
right?
line of questioning.
But has she been black longer than he's been
Well,
Republican?
right, yeah.
That's the question.
So getting to that, I think that's the setup of where potentially that line of questioning has come from, because it was just an emotional line of questioning. Um, that So yeah, I think that in a lot of ways, what Trump was saying, and equally, it's like you said, it's an unserious question. And yeah, he may have thrown in a jab, right? Like, okay, like I'm gonna be funny too, right? Like you want to be funny, then I'm gonna be funny, right? And so essentially being a little petty with the comment of, I don't know when she turned black, because I mean, to me that was funny. Like like I literally bursted out laughing when he said that. Like, because like to me the question was petty, right? Like it's a petty
Right, right,
question. So he
right.
met
But
it with an equally
I got you.
petty
I got you.
answer, but
Like,
it was factual though. Like,
right. But I mean,
like you
as
have
far as
been
DLs,
running on being Indian. You've been introducing yourself as the first Asian American, the first South Asian American to do X, Y, Z to accomplish being a DA, being an AG, um, you know, reducing recidivism rates, etc. You have been fundraising, you have been handshaking, shaking your tin can under a certain identity, and then all of a sudden, when that identity no longer poses well, because frankly, the black vote is larger than the Indian vote. It's called what it is, right? Like Indians, I don't know what the makeup for the Indian vote is in terms of Republicans versus Democrats, who's registered Republicans versus registered Democrats versus those that vote Democrat or Republican, irrespective of how they're registered, right? But the point is that um, Indians, just from a numbers standpoint, right, pure numbers standpoint, are a significantly smaller demographic than black folks in this country. So, being Indian in a national election is not as advantageous as being Indian in a state where Indians are heavily, and just the Asian community. When you look at, in fact, there's a chart that looks at the income breakdown of the state of California specifically, and the highest earners. And when you look at the highest, like literally, I think the top five highest earners are all Asians. It is like Indian, I believe, sits at the top at over 120K. And then you have, I believe, Japanese and Korean, Filipino, like literally the top five highest income earners are Asian. So to
right,
poll in California is certainly more advantageous, in other words, to be from a community where it has heavy representation. Black representation is not heavy in the state of California. It has its pockets, but you're talking about less than 8% of the total
especially
population. But
especially in San
now,
Francisco, right?
right in San Francisco,
And the Indians gonna
and
be over indexed in terms of IT, so they're gonna make a lot more.
exactly, and
Exactly. I got
oh,
it.
and I would assume over index in donorship as well, because
All
frankly,
right.
black folks are not a demographic that is known to uh, give in largesse to political campaigns, and
Right.
specifically
Right.
political and individual politicians. So let alone
Right. Right.
PACs. So now you get on this national stage, and all of a sudden being Indian doesn't poll or seems less attractive than being black, because you look at the voter history of black folks, and by and large, since the civil rights, black folks have largely voted without fail Democrat. So
Okay. So she has not.
clearly there's a motivation there, and
So
he's
she
not
has
wrong.
not been. She has not been black long, and Trump has been Republican.
That's my point. Like he's not
Okay.
wrong.
Okay. And the other thing that you point out on previous show was that her father never identified as black in Jamaica.
Correct.
So this black phenomenon is a new. It's a new phenomenon.
Correct. He specifically, Donald Harris, it comes from a particular pedigree of of Jamaicans, um, whose whose really singular focus is very class driven. They understand that there is a racial identity that closely ties in to class. Just as a country, and I think even just Caribbean identity is largely class driven, less racially driven, simply because most countries throughout the Caribbean are predominantly black, right? So prime ministers have been black, most MPs or members of parliament are already black. So there isn't this racial barrier, so to speak, that needs to be jumped over and attacked in the same way that it seeks to be accomplished within the U.S. context. So
The
most people that come from
only way to differentiate yourself is through class.
that is not the only, but it's the largest. It's the
Okay, and
largest.
what does he identify as
So
in Jamaica?
Donald Harris identifies with his former white slave owner. That's how he got his name, Harris, and his Irish ancestry. And it is a particular pedigree that upholds, like there's a pedigree of Jamaican that they can be dark as night. And I'm not even being facetious. They can be dark as night and will be ready to throat punch you if you refer to them as black.
Hmm.
If you refer to them as almost anything African. Uh, because they are so tied in with their essentially slave owner ancestry. You have a certain pedigree of Jamaican that their almost life's identity is attached to their slave owning ancestry, and to the point where you think about an Uncle Ruckus, right, from the Boondocks, or this hyperbole of a character, but where he's thanking, thank you, good white folk, for treating me like like the black nigga I am, dot dot dot, like, and you like that mentality exists in a certain pedigree of Jamaican, like to that point that they actually think their white slave owning ancestors for being a white slave owning ancestor, because they feel like had they not been a part of that lineage, that they wouldn't have the opportunities in life that they have. And
I got
that
you.
is a real
I
mentality.
got you.
And
So,
Harris comes from that pedigree of Jamaican.
so I
So
see.
genetically, does he have African genes running through his blood? Yes. However, does he identify? Has he ever identified as black? That man will spit in your face and stomp on your neck before you
Gotcha.
ever find him identifying as black.
Right, and that's probably why Kamala refused to answer that question when
100%.
she was
Because
asked
she's
about her race.
never
And
grown
so,
up as black. I can tell
right,
you
and
that
so,
now.
right,
She has.
and so when she gets if she gets elected, and she prints tens of $1 trillions and give it to Indian Americans, and black folks go, "What about us?" She's gonna say, "I never said I was black American."
Right.
Right, she can play that game, the Obama game. So yeah, so DL is making stuff up again.
Right, right,
So,
right, right,
so it
right.
sounds cute. It sounds cute, but
Right. It was a funny joke.
but
It got off.
our truth serum here called
Right.
truth serum in the global economy
Or
saw through it.
haterade, as
We saw
Blue
through
Book
it.
gonna call it.
Right. Okay, so then he says something about now that Trump is falling in the polls. That's not true either. That's not true.
There's
Polling
some
data I got from
slippage.
John.
I'll give him that. I gotta give him that.
Yeah,
There's some slippage. There was some slippage because I think
maybe
it was 46 to 43 the last.
uh
I think before, or at least the last 4 or 5 days, the
mm-hmm.
last poll, at least that I came across, it was 46% approval for Kamala and
Okay.
43 for
Okay, the poll I saw from John McLaughlin was this is July. This is right after
okay.
Trump had gotten after Trump had gotten shot at,
assassination
and
attempt. Yeah,
then also after I apologize. I think I may have misspoken. It was right after Kamala had gotten, Biden to step down,
got you.
and it was clear Kamala was going to be the nominee,
Right.
and it was 46-44 for Trump versus Biden. It was also he had kept a 2-point lead over Kamala Harris after Biden stepped down.
Yeah.
There were some gains for African Americans for Kamala, obviously,
Right.
but
Yep.
Trump gained in rural areas,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting. The reason I can bring up John McLaughlin's poll, he's been on the show several times. He's the one who predicted Trump was going to win in 2016. So all the other polls were the ones that said Trump was going to get stomped in 2016.
Right.
So when these people repeating these polls, which polls are we talking about? The ones that the most accurate polls, the same polls that said Trump was going to get decimated in 2016.
Yeah.
So it depends on what polls they're talking about.
No, that's
And so
very
we're
true.
going to soon find out. And also, I heard that her polling data may have fallen after her interview with
I believe
CNN.
it. I can believe it. That would be my expectation because she didn't come across as, and, I said it in our text that she just didn't come across as very presidential at all. There's just I think, it's one of those subjective things. So certainly me personally, my opinion, I feel as though even Hillary has more of a presidential presence about her than Kamala does. I feel as though Kamala's presence is more of, and maybe this is a recent iteration of you know being the sister girl. Like, let me hang out in the kitchen with you, and dance to some Earth, Wind, and Fire while we cooking our greens in the bathtub, and doing the bump and and the swim, and you know what I mean. Like, it's the person you can just kind of hang out with, and it's your favorite auntie, right? Who is your favorite kind of rich auntie because she never had any kids. So, she brings the best gifts over, and she's fun to laugh with and hang out with, and hear the stories and escapades of her life, but not who I want as my president. Like, I just don't get that sense of
Right,
this is
right.
who I want to lead the country, who I want making executive decisions for both foreign and domestic policy, and where this person is going to usher us into the future. Like, that's a different presence to me. Like I said, that's my opinion, but that's just the sense that
Mhm.
I get when I watch
Right.
her and listen
I
to
don't, I
her
don't.
in interviews.
I don't think she knows why she wants to be president. I don't think she knows what her policies are. I don't think she has any policies really. I don't think she knows why she wants to be president. I don't think she's passionate about being president. Maybe she's passionate about getting a comeuppance or being powerful. But clearly, she thinks that she can do the Barack Obama and dance between the raindrops and talk in circles, and somebody's going to vote for her because she's black. And that's what somebody told her, that she can play this game with voters. But behind the scenes, it's clear she's giving clear messaging to her donors what her policies are, and that they're gonna be 10 times richer than they were before she got in office. She's saying it behind the scenes, but in front of voters who should need to vote for her, she can't give a clear answer why she wants to be president. She's not gonna tell you the truth, and she thinks she can pull up Barack Obama and talk about imagery um, and give a performance and talk about who she's married to and what church she go to, that type of stuff. Basically identity politics and get elected, and it's not working.
Right.
I don't think it's going to work this time. So that's sort of
And
that's
the
sort of my
difference
take.
too between her and Obama is that Obama refused to get into the identity politics game. You know, the whereas we're being shoved, like, force-fed identity politics when it comes to Kamala. To me, it's intentional. Like, even this conversation about her blackness, like, whether she identifies as black or not is irrelevant to her ability to do the job. But the fact that they continue, that Democrats and even Kamala and supporters of Kamala continue to put this talking point on a pedestal, to me is part and parcel of who she is as a candidate. Who she, where, in other words, it's a distraction. It's, and I feel like it's an intentional distraction
Yeah, yeah.
because
They're
as long as
trying.
we keep the conversation on this identity politics, it keeps the conversation from the efficacy of policy. It
Right,
keeps the
exactly, exactly.
conversation from making demands in exchange for our vote. It keeps
Right,
the conversation at a point of critique and a constant division because you have some black men. You also have some black women that are falling for the trick bag and saying, well, we have demands. If you
right,
want
right.
our vote, then you need to speak to those demands. What are you prepared to do for us
I
as a
think, I think,
voting
all,
bloc?
I
And I
think it
really see that.
also, I think it also puts in front of Trump and JD Vance an opportunity to damage themselves. Oh, he hear what he said about her race.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? To make it seem like he's a Kamala. They probably have polling data too that shows if Trump attacks them on her gender or her race, it's not going to end well. They have to talk about policy, so they try to bait him into talk about race.
Yeah. And I think,
That's where
yeah.
it seems to me. They're trying to. It's more.
Mm,
They want to create a distraction, but they want Trump to do it for them and try to bait Trump and talk about her race and talk about. See what he said about her race?
right. Right.
He simply asked about her, and he said she's been Indian longer than she's been.
Yeah. Which has
She's
been
Indian,
which has been factual.
and now she's black, and all of a sudden it was like he was a racist. It's like, what are you talking about anyway? But yeah, so we're trying to figure out what poll Dio's talking about and what date. He didn't really say, but that was real slick of him. He also said that which right up there with the White House joke, he should buy the White House and rent it to her. That's the one you keep on. Also, which I thought was it's funny, but again,
Yeah.
another thing he said was that blacks for Kamala, Republicans for Kamala. At this point, at this pace, Trump's gonna do what it feels like to be left for be
Right.
replaced by a younger woman,
Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
thought was hilarious, and it resonates with all people, black women, white women.
Right.
I thought it was hilarious. He does have a penchant for like finding ways to replace his wife. Like what was wrong with Marla Maples? I still can't figure out what was wrong with Marla Maples. But anyway, um, uh, anyway, so I thought that was hilarious. I thought it was effective.
Yeah.
And then again, his monologue where he talks about doing research and so on and so forth, and how Kamala's going to give everybody a chance. I thought that was the right messaging. And then he finished up. I didn't show in the clip. He finished up with the. He started showing his signal to his fraternity, Omega Psi Phi,
Yeah.
which again I thought was to me
Right.
it was simping a little bit. Like, dude,
Yeah.
like you're funny or you're not. You have something to say, or you don't. But anyway, so that's sort of my take as we went through all the different issues. But I thought the monologue was hilarious. I thought it was nicely done by D.L. Hughley. I thought he did the job that he needed for the Democratic Party. But as we showed, a lot of what he said just simply ain't true. So I'm hoping D.L. takes his baptismal well, and maybe it'll prompt him to do even more research on the issues. So that's basically Trump and the G Baptizes D.L. Hughley. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you.